Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here today. In a moment, I will turn the podium over to Windsor Police to provide an update regarding the ongoing security situation along Huron Church Road. And I want to take an opportunity to, again, thank Windsor Police and all other law enforcement personnel who attended this past week to clear the Ambassador Bridge so that international trade could resume once again. I also want to add my voice to those small businesses and residents who are frustrated and who are upset about the current gauntlet of concrete barriers along Huron Church Road. And I want to say that I fully understand the impact of this disruption to you. But let me be clear, this remains a national security situation that prevents police from simply reopening Huron Church Road to regular traffic at this time. Last week, the Government of Ontario declared a state of emergency as it relates to these protests. This week, I declared an emergency in the City of Windsor, and the Government of Canada invoked the Emergencies Act for the first time in our history. Never before have all three levels of government declared an emergency related to illegal blockades and protests at international crossings. The City of Windsor and our industry partners, the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, the Windsor-Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Attorney General of Ontario went to court to seek an injunction to end the illegal occupation. We are due back in court this Friday to seek to continue this injunctive relief. The Windsor Police is part of an integrated command structure that includes provincial and federal law enforcement. This group constantly evaluates the threat assessment and level of risk to determine if and when the heightened police presence along Huron Church can be loosened. Police will provide further updates, but we have just been briefed that within the past 24 hours, a convoy suspected of attempting to reoccupy the bridge was thwarted as protesters were en route to the City of Windsor. Law enforcement successfully intercepted the convoy before they were able to install themselves in our city. Huron Church Road is clear of occupation today because of the sustained integrated law enforcement activity responding to this event, and I'm very grateful for that. They cannot ignore these ongoing threats because of the inconvenience that is being caused along Huron Church Road. And while I would like to be at this podium today, certainly announcing a return to normal traffic flow, that is not yet possible. Once again, I want to emphatically say that I stand with all of the residents and the businesses who are operating and who are really at their wits' end over the events of the past few weeks. When the time comes to return to normal, that will be a decision for the integrated law enforcement operation to make that determination. City Council and myself as mayor are not empowered to override law enforcement. As mayor, however, we will do all that we can to support the small businesses and the residents along Huron Church Road at this challenging time. First, all passengers traveling to and from Sandwichtown on board the Transit Windsor buses, the Central 3 bus and specifically, and the Central 3 West bus, will ride free of charge until this security situation improves. Second, our city administration will work with individual businesses and the Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce to create dedicated communications products, including maps and online tools that will help inform customers about alternative routes to access these businesses. Third, city administration will work with all impacted businesses to document the economic losses associated with this national security situation and include these costs as part of the request for financial assistance from upper levels of government once the situation is cleared and all of the costs are known. Our community and our country have been through such sacrifice over the past 2 years. Family events missed or canceled, relatives separated by the long closure of the border to non-essential travel, and just as we are starting to see the light at the end of this difficult period, it certainly is distressing that Windsorites, and specifically those in the West End, need to be called upon to sacrifice even more. The reality is that the economic disruption that would be caused by another illegal occupation would simply be too staggering to bear. The Ambassador Bridge, and by extension Huron Church Road, is responsible for about $400 million of trade each way, each and every single day. Up to 10,000 trucks travel across this corridor daily, representing about 30% of all commercial trade between Canada and the United States. And we cannot and we will not allow another illegal occupation. Right now, I'd like to call upon Chief Pam Mizuno and Deputy Chief Jason Bellair to provide an operational update. Chief, Deputy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks to the help received from our policing partners, just past midnight on Sunday, February 13th, traffic resumed across our international border at the Ambassador Bridge. As we find ourselves immersed in a national security situation, the Windsor Police Service remains committed to balancing the needs of our local community with the needs of our nation. To that end, we are opening roadway access to the Huron Church Road corridor as much as we can. This is assessed on a continual basis, and we continue to confer with our integrated operations team that has representation at all levels and from all sectors. Traffic is flowing along Huron Church in both directions to and from the bridge. All intersections with traffic control lights along Huron Church Road are flashing red at the moment to ensure trucks are proceeding safely. Anything north of Wyandotte along Huron Church is open to traffic. We have officers monitoring traffic at that intersection. At the far south end, southbound Huron Church can be accessed via EC Row Expressway. With assistance from traffic and engineering, signage was placed along EC Row indicating that any northbound traffic on Huron Church via the expressway is destined for the USA only. At approximately 11:45 hours today, the intersection at Northway Avenue to the east and Industrial Drive to the west, as well as southbound traffic along Huron Church, was opened. The intersections at Millen and Gerardo remain closed and fully blocked to traffic. We would like to open up traffic access to all residents who need access to Huron Church Road, and we will do so as soon as we can. I do want to stress that the magnitude of events at the Ambassador Bridge have resonated both in Canada and around the world. The scale of concern for the events happening around the country is so great that the Government of Canada has invoked the Emergencies Act. While some demonstrations across Canada have concluded, there remains a risk that compels action by all levels of government. The Windsor Police Service and our policing partners are obligated to protect the continuity of access to our public infrastructure that connects our country for both travel and commerce. As recently as yesterday, a convoy of 6 to 7 transport trucks were spotted traveling westbound on the 401, approximately 250 kilometers from Windsor. It was learned that this convoy had traveled from Ottawa and is suspected that this convoy was heading to Windsor. This convoy has since circled back, traveling eastbound on the 401. There is a broader plan in place to protect our border, ensuring that there are no further interruptions and to protect public safety. The Windsor Police Service has heard from many of our residents and businesses along Huron Church affected by the barricades. We, with the help of the city, have tried to communicate and accommodate businesses with a secondary access through an alternative service road. Signage has been placed along the businesses to advise traffic of alternative routes into the affected businesses. We understand that the impact this continues to have on our community. We are doing our best to address the traffic situation while we continually assess the situation to balance the ongoing risks with the needs of our community. The Windsor Police Service Corporate Communications continues to update traffic and provide maps to advise the public of the temporary obstructions. We are opening up as many streets as we can while making a plan for the days ahead. While I cannot commit to timelines, I assure you that the Windsor Police Service and our partners continue to prioritize community safety above all and will aim to reduce traffic restrictions where possible. I will now turn it over to Deputy Chief Bellair, who has been tasked to tend to the traffic situation and its impact on our community, and specifically those residents and businesses in the area.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to reiterate that we do have on our social media and on our corporate communications postings, we do have the maps of the road closures. We have the descriptions of which roads are open, which roads are closed, and anybody can access those at any time. In terms of dealing with the issues we're having with some of the business owners and proprietors of different businesses on Huron Church Road, we've made a lot of efforts by sending liaison officers out there, making phone calls, trying to determine what the impacts are on those people. We do feel for those folks. Personally, myself, I've attended a business, I've called business owners to ensure that they understand that we have a priority of opening Huron Church Road to reduce the impacts they're having on their businesses. That said, we're balancing that against the needs we have right now for a national security issue and for dealing with the information we're getting regarding activity across Canada in terms of protests at public infrastructure. From that, I can take some questions.
Q&A for the Deputy Chief, Windsor Star. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Deputy Chief, he said you're monitoring national activity of the occupiers. How about local activity? Does Windsor Police suspect that they're still in the area, and in what number?
I don't have numbers for you, and it's not proper or appropriate for me to divulge any sort of operational information that we have. I don't want to compromise the integrity of any sort of investigations or operations we have. We still have local people here and from not far away that are involved in this type of activity, and there's still people that we're concerned about. It's evaluated on a continual basis throughout the day and throughout the night, and that's about the best answer I can give you on that.
Regarding the convoy of 6 to 7 big rigs that was turned away, for what reason did they turn away?
They said that they were just going to go in the other direction. It was a simple interaction between the officers who were there. They're about 250 kilometers outside of Windsor. They said they were heading to Ottawa, which you can't get to, I guess, by westbound 401. So they turned around and they went the other way.
Blackburn?
You mentioned kind of one of the first few days of the blockade that you will be monitoring the people there and that you could lay charges after the fact. Has any of that activity started? Just whether or not you were going to lay any charges for people who were there afterwards?
Yeah, the activity is continuing in terms of that type of investigation. Sure, we could go through video, we could look for officer evidence. It's something that's being looked at right now, and there are members of our major crime unit that are looking at doing that, but we don't have any charges to present to you for now.
Almost?
No, good.
CTV?
To my recollection, the court injunction blocking the efforts of the blockade ends next week. Can you speak a little bit to some of the lessons learned and how you're preparing for that day coming up?
Well, I think the mayor alluded to, or quite explicitly said, that we have a lot of legislation in play right now. For the first time in my lifetime, the federal government has enacted the Emergencies Act. We were just getting sort of the measures and the specifics of that were delivered to us today. We're going through that. We absolutely would be looking at the possibility of continuing the injunction, as well as the provincial emergency measures, and of course the criminal code. So I think nearly every person who was arrested since the start of this was almost entirely facing criminal code of Canada charges and violating a court order under the injunction. So again, like a lot of my answers, some of these things are fluid right now and they're in live time.
Any follow-up, CBC?
You said that there was a convoy headed here, it sounded like. They turned around, and you're still doing ongoing planning and security. So how concerned are you guys that a protest like this could kind of come back and start again?
We're very concerned. And actually that's the point that I can't seem to hammer down hard enough at times when I'm talking to people about what's going on. A lifelong member of Windsor Essex, I understand and I sympathize with the people, as does the chief, as does the mayor, as does everybody you talk to, with what's going on here in Church Road. And it's an incremental step that was just a little bit better than what we were dealing with before. But we are absolutely concerned. And I think the federal government is concerned. I think the scope of the issue is so large that it did compel the federal government to enact a piece of legislation that it hasn't done in my lifetime, and I'm almost 50.
I know that the mayor was talking about there being resources and materials for businesses that are blocked right now. There's some businesses where they don't have a back entrance, they only have that front entrance to rely on. Is there any sort of accommodations or things that are going to be done for those that need customers to kind of get into their lots and provide them with business?
Well, on a case-by-case basis, we're dealing with those businesses that may be restricted and don't have that alternative access. There's a couple, I can't think of them right now, but our liaison officers that are on the ground are trying to deal with those one at a time. I think everyone can appreciate that there's a lot of moving parts involved, and the risk-benefit analysis at any given time is not a fun decision for the commanders on the ground to make. They make that decision and they bring it to me, and I respect that decision because we're very professional and experienced people who are making those decisions. For our part, we're trying to patron some of the businesses that we can down there to support our logistics for our operations and doing what we can. And everybody I spoke to personally, when I spoke to the business owners, they are understandably frustrated, but I would like to say that they have my gratitude for their understanding, because they have every right to be frustrated. But I think it's important to say that the police are responding to the actions of others that created this scenario.
Can I ask another? Okay. There were some trucks and people that left on Saturday, just when police went up and told them to leave, they left. Are those people, is there any plans for charges or anything like that for those people that did leave once police approached them?
There might be. That's being evaluated by our people on the ground who will be sifting through the evidence and making those decisions, based on whether there's any value in doing so.
Any other Q&A?
Question for the mayor?
I'll step out of the way. Thank you, everyone.
Mayor, you mentioned the municipality is going to be working with businesses affected in the area in terms of documenting their losses. What's the possibility of direct financial aid from the city?
From the city, probably very low, but we're certainly going to work with the federal and provincial governments to pass up those respected losses with respect to this particular issue, the losses that are being caused by the blockage on Huron Church Road and the disruption because of the Jersey barriers. We're going to work with our federal and provincial partners to seek restitution for those folks and those businesses.
How about something like, a break on property taxes or business fees and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously complex because there's 2 kilometers of roadway and there's businesses on both sides, there's plazas, there's hotels. Some have the ability to have smooth access from the rear of the business, some do not. And so, we can evaluate each on a case-by-case basis, but right now we're committing to work with them to figure out what those losses are and pass those up the chain to the federal and provincial governments to seek support for them.
Just another question, Mayor. Switching topics just a little bit, I did reach out about a phrase that was used that has upset members of the Indigenous community. I know that the office did respond with a statement to me. I just want to give you another opportunity to kind of respond. Members that I've spoken with say that not having you discuss it kind of makes them feel like it's not important. So just wanted to have you a chance to respond to people that are offended by what was said.
Yeah, I would say that the term that I used was last of the Mohicans, and it's commonly, the idiom is commonly last man standing, and I used it on Sunday with respect to the final group of protesters who were hardened in their position. And so clearly there was no reference or intent to reference any Indigenous group in particular. I was using it in the form of the idiom that I understand it to be, last person standing, but I'll always reflect on my language and adjust myself going forward.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you all.